There are birthdays you remember because of joy, and there are birthdays you remember because they mark the exact moment something inside you quietly breaks. Mine was the second kind. The kind that plays on a loop in your head afterward, not because of the cake or the gifts, but because of the feeling you couldn't quite name at the time, but later understood as the beginning of the end. Lindsay, my wife, threw me a birthday party on the rooftop of a brand new boutique hotel in downtown Austin. It was extravagant, rooftop bar, live music, custom cocktails with names like the Marketan and Birthday Basil Bliss, ice sculptures, even a custom cake shaped like the logo of my company. From the outside, it looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. People smiled, posed for selfies with me, toasted flutes of champagne under string lights. But even before things got weird, before the speech, I knew something was off. Most of the guests weren't really my friends. I don't even think they knew me. They were from her world, co-workers from her startup, wellness influencers she'd met in her yoga collective, a few investors whose names I didn't recognize but who clearly knew Lindsay well. They called her Lynn, a nickname I hadn't heard until that night. I counted 5 people I knew. The rest? Smiles too wide, compliments too rehearsed. I wasn't bitter about it. At first, I told myself maybe this was her way of making me feel celebrated by pulling out all the stops. But the longer I stood there, the more I realized I was playing the role of a prop. A reason for people to gather. A backdrop for her to shine. Then came the moment. Someone tapped a spoon against a glass. I turned to see Lindsay, my wife of 5 years, standing at the front with a microphone in hand and a champagne flute raised high. Everyone hushed. The guitarist stopped strumming. The city buzzed around us, quiet under the stars. Lindsay beamed at the crowd. Thank you all for coming out tonight to celebrate my amazing husband, Mark. He's thoughtful, brilliant, loyal, and occasionally hilariously oblivious. The crowd laughed lightly. I smiled, confused. Okay. Banter. No big deal. And speaking of oblivious, she continued, grinning now, I have to tell you guys a little story. Some of you already know this one because I couldn't stop laughing when it happened. My stomach tensed. My smile froze. So, last week, Mark came home early from work. Like, really early, I think he forgot to check his own calendar, poor guy. She paused for laughter. Got it. Anyway, he walks in and there's Jason, you all know Jason, right? Our sweet, totally innocent, tragically allergic to cats family friend, sprinting out the back door. Laughter. Not just a few polite chuckles, either. The kind of laughter that stings. Knowing. Complicit. I stood there paralyzed. Because I had come home early that day. It was a Thursday. I'd left the office after lunch, not feeling great, decided to skip the rest of my meetings. Lindsay hadn't known. I walked into the house and heard movement upstairs. Before I could call out, Jason came barreling down the hallway, shirtless, barefoot, drenched in sweat. Oh hey man, he mumbled as he brushed past me, not making eye contact. Just grabbing a book. He pointed vaguely toward the study. I remember thinking it was weird his car wasn't even in the driveway. Lindsay appeared a moment later, hair damp, wrapped in a robe I hadn't seen in a while. She smiled like nothing was out of the ordinary. Jason just stopped by to borrow that Murakami novel, she said, brushing past me to pick it off the shelf. He forgot we have a cat, poor guy. Instant sneezing fit. I'd accepted it. Hesitated, but ultimately let it go. Because I didn't want to be that guy. The suspicious husband. The overthinker. And because I loved her, or at least the version of her I thought I knew. But now here she was, turning that strange moment into a party anecdote. A joke at my expense. And not just a joke, a public display. An inside joke, really? One that half the room seemed to already be in on. I laughed. Or I tried to. It sounded wrong. Like a cough caught in the middle of a scream. When she finished, she clinked her glass and winked at me. To Mark. My sweet, trusting husband. Happy birthday, babe. The crowd cheered. I felt sick. After the toast, I made my way to the bar. I needed air, or maybe something stronger. I heard someone behind me say, God, she's bold, and another respond, he has no idea, does he? I didn't turn around. I just stood there, staring into the glittering skyline, gripping the stem of my glass like it was anchoring me to reality. Later, when most of the guests had left, I pulled Lindsay aside. We were back inside the penthouse suite where she'd booked a room for us. The music still thumped faintly through the walls, but the air between us was heavy. Why would you say that? I asked her. My voice was calm, too calm. Why would you tell that story like it's some kind of joke? She tilted her head, lips curled in a smug little half-smile. Babe, it was funny. You're taking it too seriously. I thought you said Jason came over to grab a book. He did. Then why was he shirtless? She shrugged. It was hot out. He jogged over from his place, remember? You always get so paranoid. I didn't reply. She touched my arm. Come on. You're overthinking this. It's my fault for bringing it up. I just thought it would lighten the mood. You've been so stressed lately. Don't turn this on me, Lynn. That was the first time I ever called her that. It slipped out. Maybe because I was starting to realize just how many versions of Lindsay there were and how few of them I actually knew. She pulled away. God, you're being so sensitive tonight. It was just a joke. But I wasn't laughing. I didn't sleep much that night. She passed out almost instantly, blissfully unaware or pretending to be. I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan spinning above our bed. Each slow rotation was like a metronome counting down something I couldn't name. I replayed the moment, Jason's face when he saw me, the silence that followed, the way Lindsay had smoothly explained it all away. And now, the way she'd turned it into a public punchline. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I really was overreacting. But something inside me, something instinctual, something I'd buried beneath years of trust and love, was whispering otherwise. The whisper didn't go away. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when she leaned over me at breakfast with that same perfect smile and said, "You had fun last night, right? You seemed a little quiet." I just nodded. Yeah. It was something. After the rooftop party, something shifted. Not in the world, in me. It wasn't dramatic. No arguments. No fights. Just a slow burn. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been laughed at, not just by strangers, but by Lindsay. My wife. The person I thought I knew better than anyone else. In the days that followed, I started noticing things. The kind of things I used to ignore. Small, forgettable details that now felt curated. Her phone was always on silent. Not vibrate silent. And always face down. If I so much as glanced at it when it lit up, she'd slide it away like a reflex. Once, I picked it up by accident. I thought it was mine, and she practically lunged across the couch to grab it from me. "That's private," she snapped, then softened. "Sorry, just work stuff." Work stuff. That excuse had been getting a lot of mileage lately. She said she was taking online courses, sharpening her edge for an upcoming role at the company. But most of the time, that translated to her locking herself in the upstairs bathroom with her laptop for an hour, sometimes more. I'd knock once or twice, ask if everything was okay, and she'd call out, studying, through the door. If I pressed, she'd open the door just a crack and wave me off. "Babe, you're distracting me." "I'm behind." Behind on what? She never said. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband. I didn't want to become one of those guys who tracked his wife's location or checked her texts. But the trust one used to wear like armor had started to fray. Then came the jacket. It was a Wednesday. I'd borrowed her car because mine was in the shop. She told me to ignore the mess, that she hadn't cleaned it out in a while. I didn't think much of it until I reached the back seat and saw a men's jacket slung over the headrest. Not mine. Too slim in the shoulders, too short in the sleeves. And a coffee cup, the kind from that boutique cafe near her office, sat in the cup holder with "Ben" written across it in Sharpie. "Hey," I asked her that night, trying to keep my tone casual, "did you give someone a ride recently?" She didn't even look up from her salad. "Yeah, a guy from work. His car broke down." "Why? Ben?" She paused just long enough for me to notice. "Yeah," she said slowly. "Ben. From HR." Later that night, I looked up the company directory on her website. No one named Ben worked in HR. Or anywhere else. When I brought it up the next day, she brushed it off. He was a contractor. I don't think they list those. She said it so smoothly, so convincingly, I almost let it go. Almost. But the knot in my gut didn't loosen. It tightened. Then came the photo. A few days after the party, I checked her Instagram just out of habit. The rooftop *TS were all still there. Smiling faces, clinking glasses, captions with sparkles and hashtags. But something was missing. I noticed it without even trying. A photo of me and Lindsay, the one where I had my arms wrapped around her from behind, laughing into her neck while she held the cake. Gone. All the others remained. But that one? Deleted. I asked her about it later, trying to sound nonchalant. "Did you take down the picture of us from the party?" Her eyes flicked toward me. "Oh, yeah. I didn't like how I looked in it. My arms looked weird." "That's the only one you deleted." She shrugged. "I'm allowed to curate my feed, Mark. It's not a conspiracy." I nodded, but I didn't believe her. Because I remembered that photo. She looked amazing in it. Everyone said so in the comments. The only thing that didn't look perfect in that *T was me. That's when I started to feel it, this eerie sense that things weren't just drifting apart. She was preparing something. A slow withdrawal. A soft erasure. Like she was getting ready to rewrite the story before I even realized I was being written out. Her schedule got weirder. She started going to bed earlier, alone. I need the rest, she said, these courses are draining me. I'd lie awake, listening to the quiet tick of the clock and the buzz of her phone lighting up across the room. Sometimes she'd get up in the middle of the night, said she was going to journal in the guest room to clear her head. Once I followed her. I waited 5 minutes, then crept down the hall barefoot on the hardwood. The guest room door was closed, but the light glowed beneath it. I leaned close. Silence. Then faintly, the sound of keyboard taps. She wasn't journaling. She was talking to someone. I didn't knock. I just stood there, heart thudding in my ears, before retreating quietly down the hall. The next morning, I asked how her journaling went. She said it helped. I think I'm getting some clarity. Clarity. Such a strange word to use. I tried talking to her, really talking, over dinner the following weekend. I told her I felt distance growing between us. That I missed her. That I wanted to understand what was going on. She smiled, put her hand on mine, and said, "You're sweet. But you worry too much." "I'm just growing, Mark. Evolving." "Don't you want me to grow?" I nodded. Of course I did. But I didn't think growth meant leaving me behind. At work, I started slipping. Missing meetings. Forgetting names. My assistant asked me if I was okay, and I gave her a tight smile and a lie. Just tired. Because how do you explain that you're slowly unraveling from the inside out? I started keeping a notebook, writing down every odd moment, every unexplained change. Not because I wanted to catch her in something, not at first, but because I needed to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. That the things I was seeing and feeling were real. And still, a part of me hoped it was all in my head. That I'd open her laptop one day and find actual course material. That the man's jacket was just a friend's. That the deleted photo was really about lighting or filters or arm angles. But hope has a shelf life. And mine was expiring fast. The final straw, the moment that pushed me from suspicion into certainty, came during a random Tuesday afternoon. I'd come home early from a client meeting that got canceled. Her car was in the driveway. I figured she was upstairs, maybe on a video call. But when I opened the front door, I heard a sound that stopped me in my tracks. A low laugh. A man's voice. Coming from upstairs. I didn't move. Just stood there, keys still in hand, heartbeat like a jackhammer. Then silence. Then the sound of footsteps, fast, deliberate, and the squeak of a window. When I finally made it upstairs, the guest room door was open, but no one was there. The window was cracked. A faint draft brushed past my face. Lindsay stepped out of the bathroom, towel in her hair. "You're home early," she said, smiling. "Everything okay?" I wanted to ask. To scream. To demand. But I just stood there, staring at her like I was trying to read a language I no longer understood. "Yeah," I said finally, voice hollow. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't. And deep down, I think we both knew it. I think the scariest part about betrayal isn't the betrayal itself, it's the silence that follows it. The way everything looks the same. The way she still kissed me on the cheek in the morning, still asked if I wanted oat milk or regular in my coffee, still told me to drive safe. You look around and nothing's broken. But everything is. I stopped sleeping. My chest always felt tight, like there was a string wound too tight inside me, threatening to snap. Every moment felt like I was on the edge of discovery, like one more wrong answer, one more half-smile, would blow the whole thing wide open. And part of me wanted that. I wanted the explosion. The confession. The truth. But Lindsay was careful. Surgical. She played her role so well that I started doubting my own instincts. Maybe I was losing it. Maybe I was projecting. Maybe I was the one changing, seeing shadows where there weren't any. Then I did the thing I swore I'd never do. I installed a keylogger on her laptop. It felt disgusting. Like crossing a moral line. But the need for answers had mutated into something primal. I told myself I wouldn't look unless I had to. But the truth is, I was just waiting for an excuse. It didn't take long. She left for a weekend women's retreat in San Antonio with her yoga group. Left Friday afternoon, kissed me on the cheek, said she'd be back Sunday night and that they were going tech-free to disconnect and recalibrate. She left her laptop behind. That night, I opened it. Hands trembling. Screen glowing too bright in the dark. I thought I was ready. I wasn't. It started with her email. Nothing obvious at first, a few newsletters, a work thread about a redesign. Then I found the folder. Tucked deep in her drafts, titled simply Journal. Inside were unsent messages. Pages of them. And they weren't written to me. They were to him. Jason. She called him Jay. She wrote about how free he made her feel. How she felt seen, adored, wanted. How it's getting harder to go home and pretend. How she missed his hands, his mouth, his reckless comfort. Her words, not mine. The dates were the worst part. They lined up perfectly. The Tuesday I heard a man's voice upstairs? She had written, "He almost caught us today. You slipped out just in time." My heart's still racing. The retreat weekend? She had a hotel reservation booked under her name, 2 guests. I found it in her inbox. A boutique resort just outside the city. Spa, fire pits, forest views. A room with a king bed and a note, "Please ensure early check-in." Celebrating a private anniversary. Private? God. I didn't cry. I just sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, numb. It's strange how betrayal doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in, layer by layer, like frost climbing up a window pane. I kept hoping it would stop, that the next message would be different. That maybe I'd find a draft where she came to her senses. But they only got worse. Then came the message that shattered everything. It was an email to her best friend, April. Sent just a few days before the party. "After the next trip, I'm going to tell him we need space. I'll frame it as for my growth, not because of Jay. That way it won't get messy. He'll grieve, but he'll bounce back. He's too practical to cause drama. Then I can transition cleanly. Wish me luck." Transition. Like I was a job change. A phase she was growing out of. All this time I thought I was unraveling. But it turns out I was being unraveled. And she was the one pulling the thread. That night, I sat alone in our living room, the laptop still open on the coffee table. Her emails still glowing on the screen. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. The same porch lights blinked in the same pattern. The world didn't stop. It never does. I remember standing up, walking to the mirror by the entryway. I looked like a ghost. Pale, hollow-eyed. I touched my reflection just to see if I was still real. I didn't sleep. When she got home Sunday night, she looked radiant. Tanned. Glowing. Like she'd just come back from a weekend at a luxury spa, which, of course, she had. She smelled like citrus oil and sandalwood. She dropped her bag and wrapped her arms around me. "I missed you," she said. I nodded. "Missed you, too." Lie. I already had an attorney lined up by Tuesday. Quiet. Efficient. My friend Colin had recommended her after his divorce, said she was ruthless with a smile. She told me exactly what I needed to do: separate my finances, back up all evidence, stop confronting, and start recording. So I did. I opened a new bank account. Changed the passwords to anything tied to my business. Started transferring my stake in the company to a protected trust. Every move was surgical. Quiet. Deliberate. Because this wasn't just about Lindsay anymore. I wasn't just dealing with infidelity. I was dealing with a woman who'd planned to dismantle my entire life, gently. That was the word she kept using in those drafts. Gently. Like you lower a dog into a shelter and tell him he's going on vacation. She didn't just cheat. She schemed. She prepared. She wanted out of the marriage, sure, but not without padding. Not without taking a piece of me with her. The business. The house. Maybe even the image of the amicable ex. She wanted to leave looking clean, blameless. And Jason? He was just the prize waiting on the other side. The real connection. The new start. She was betting on me to stay quiet. To let it go. She didn't realize I'd already end my own preparation. There's a point where you stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and start asking, "What am I going to do about it?" For me, that point came a week after I read that email to April, the one where Lindsay wrote that she'd framed the breakup as part of her growth. That word haunted me. Growth. Like I was a pothole in the road she needed to drive around to reach her next life milestone. Every smile, every morning kiss, every shared meal after that, all of it became unbearable. Like I was living in a replica of my old life, except now I knew the walls were paper thin and the ground beneath me wasn't real. I was tired of pretending. Tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I did something no one expected. I left. But I didn't just walk out the front door. I vanished. It started with a storage unit on the edge of town, one of those quiet places with dusty fluorescent lighting and a man behind the counter who didn't ask for more than your first name and cash. I rented a unit the size of a walk-in closet and slowly began moving small boxes into it. Originals of key business documents. Spare clothes. An old duffel of cash I'd saved from a consulting gig years back. My dad's watch. A burner phone. Then came the hard part, untangling myself from everything with my name on it. I sold my shares in the company to my partner under the table, legally messy but necessary. He knew something was wrong and didn't ask questions. He wired the money to an account that didn't have my name on it. I filed for divorce the same day I left. My lawyer submitted everything electronically. Lindsay wouldn't even know until the papers landed at the front door, served by a stranger on a Thursday morning while she was probably still drinking her overpriced matcha. But by then I was already gone. The identity I chose wasn't random. Tyler Grayson. It sounded plain enough to blend in but strong enough to rebuild behind. Tyler was who I imagined I could have been in a parallel life, the kind of man who didn't need a shiny house or a power couple label to feel real. Tyler didn't host rooftop parties. Tyler didn't need to prove anything. Montana wasn't the plan, exactly. I drove west with no clear destination. I just knew I wanted out of Austin, out of Texas, out of the circles Lindsay moved in, out of reach from anyone who might look at me and think, isn't that the guy whose wife? Eventually, I hit a small town tucked near the edge of Flathead Lake. Population, maybe 3,000. They had a gas station, a hardware store, a diner, and a boat repair shop. That was it. It was the boat shop that saved me. It was owned by a guy named Hank, mid-60s, wore the same flannel shirt every day, smelled like grease and black coffee. I walked in off the highway with nothing but a duffel bag and asked if he needed help. You any good with your hands? He asked, not looking up from a carburetor. I built my own company, I replied. He looked at me then. Hard stare. Silent judgment. You any good with boats? I shrugged. Not yet. He grunted. Come back tomorrow. 6 a.m. That was it. No background check. No references. Just a handshake and the kind of trust that only makes sense in a place where everyone minds their own business. I became Tyler Grayson, the new guy who knew nothing about hulls or engines or bilge pumps but learned fast. Hank wasn't much for talking, which suited me fine. We worked long days, side by side in silence with only the sound of sanders, wrenches, and country radio filling the gaps. He never asked about my past. I never offered it. My hands, once soft from keyboards and conference rooms, grew calloused. My arms, once tense with stress, steadied. My sleep came deeper. My appetite returned. I felt like a man again, not a ghost. The town eventually got used to me. Locals stopped asking, where you from, and started saying, you coming to the fish fry this weekend? I said yes once. Then again. Then it became routine. I was just Tyler, the quiet guy who worked at the boat shop and lived in the tiny apartment over the garage. 3 years passed like that. I became co-owner when Hank decided to spend more time with his grandkids. He scribbled my name on the papers with the casual gravity of someone passing on a legacy. We changed the name to Grayson Marine and Repair. His idea, not mine. After that, I started building again, not just repairs, but custom hulls. Handcrafted boats shaped slow and precise. No mass production, no advertising. Word of mouth did the rest. I started a website. Barebones. A few photos, a contact form. No bio. No history. Just a name. Grayson Custom Hulls. Sometimes I thought about Lindsay. Wondered what she told people when they asked where I went. Maybe she cried. Maybe she spun it. Maybe she married Jason. Maybe she posted long Instagram captions about finding peace after pain. But I didn't search. I never Googled her. Never checked social. Never tried to find Jason. I didn't want to know. That life was gone. That version of me, Mark, was gone. And I didn't miss him. What I missed sometimes was the idea of it all. The idea of being someone's forever. The belief that love could outlast loneliness. But I was older now. Less naive. I knew how fast forever could turn into for now and then into nothing at all. Out here, there were no illusions. Just wood, water, and work. And that was enough. But the past has a funny way of catching up with you. 5 years into my new life, I was sanding down the stern of a boat when a silver sedan pulled up. Out stepped a woman in a long black coat and sharp heels that didn't belong on gravel. She walked with purpose. Not from around here. Tyler Grayson? She asked. I hesitated. Who's asking? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I'm a private investigator. My stomach tightened. Not fear, not quite, but something old. Something I'd buried. I think you've got the wrong guy, I said, straightening. She held up a folder. Actually, I think I finally found the right one. She stood in front of me like a ghost dressed in black, holding a manila folder like it was a badge. This woman, sharp eyes, calm voice, the kind of presence that said she didn't come to ask for anything. She came with answers and a purpose. I've been looking for you, Mark. I didn't flinch at the name. I'd prepared for this moment in theory, in those late-night thoughts you try to smother. But hearing it out loud again felt like someone throwing open a locked door I'd bricked shut. You've got the wrong guy, I said, wiping sawdust off my hands. I don't think I do, she replied, stepping forward. Tyler Grayson doesn't exist before 5 years ago. No birth records, no tax filings, no school history. But Mark Kavanaugh? He went missing in Austin, Texas, around the same time Tyler started buying groceries in Kalispell. She handed me the folder. I didn't take it. What do you want? It's not about me, she said, her voice softening. It's about your son. That word, son, cracked something in my chest. I stared at her. I don't have a son. You do, she said calmly. You just didn't know it. My legs felt unsteady. I leaned back against the boat like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Explain. She opened the folder. Inside were medical documents, DNA records, a paternity test with my name, my old name, typed across the top. 99.99% match. I don't remember how long I stood there staring at it, or when she started talking again. Her voice sounded far away. Lindsay gave birth 7 months after you disappeared. She listed the father as unknown. But later, she and Jason raised the boy together, married shortly after. His name is Zach. He's 5 now. My throat felt like sandpaper. Why are you telling me this now? Because he's sick, she said. It started a year ago. A rare autoimmune condition, aggressive, unresponsive to standard treatments. They've tried everything. Jason isn't a biological match. When they finally ran a full genome panel, they found you. I'm not a donor, I said almost automatically. I'm not a resource they get to summon after they. He's dying, she interrupted. The words hung between us. I know you don't owe them anything, she added. But Zach is innocent. And whether you like it or not, he's yours. I didn't answer her right away. I walked out behind the shop, into the pine-shadowed lot where I kept scrap wood and broken parts. I sat on a crate and tried to breathe. A son, a child. And Lindsay, she never told me, never gave me the chance to even be a father. She went on with her life, married Jason, raised my son under his name. And now that the story had soured, they were digging me back up like a buried asset. Still, I couldn't shake the image. A boy, my boy, lying in a hospital bed somewhere, too young to understand what was happening. A child made in betrayal, yes, but also a child who had me in him. A child who never got to hear my voice, never sat in the hull of a half-finished boat while I explained how every plank fit together. What right did I have to deny him life? That night I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling above my small bed, hearing the echo of her voice. Zach is innocent. The next morning, I told the woman I'd come. The hospital was in Seattle. They'd moved there a year prior for better treatment access. According to her, I didn't ask for Lindsay. I didn't ask about Jason. I just asked to see the boy. He was in a pediatric wing, small, pale, hooked up to machines that beeped softly under dim lights. He looked like me, and it shattered me. Same chin. Same forehead crease when he furrowed his brow in his sleep. Lindsay wasn't there when I arrived. But Jason was. He didn't recognize me at first. I looked different, longer hair, leaner frame, sun-worn skin. But the moment he made the connection, his face tightened. Didn't expect you to show up, he said. I didn't do it for you. He nodded. Fair. There was a long silence between us. He stood near the forestand, arms crossed. I stood near the window, hands in my pockets. Then he said, he's a good kid, smart, loves building things, always wants to take apart his toys just to see how they work. I closed my eyes. What do they need from me? I asked. Stem cell infusion. You're a match. The only match. I agreed to the tests that afternoon. Signed the forms. Went through the procedures. I stayed in a motel nearby for a week, then 2. They kept asking me to visit, to spend time with him, to build rapport, to help ease the psychological transition. But the more time I spent in that room, the more something started to feel off. It started with a news article. Small mention in a medical research journal about Jason's company, a biotech firm focused on autoimmune therapies, receiving federal grants tied to groundbreaking donor identification. Then I overheard one of the nurses mention something about a press team. They're setting up interviews, she said. His parents are talking to NPR. His parents. I asked one of the doctors if this was part of a study. He hesitated, then said, your name is protected under donor confidentiality. That was the final flag. I called my attorney from the motel parking lot. Gave her everything, the emails, the folder, the hospital notes, even the press materials I'd quietly photographed. I want a file built, I told her. If they're using this for PR or financial gain, I want it exposed. Within a week, the file was in the right hands. Quiet. Legal. Lethal. Accounts started freezing. Internal memos were leaked. A whistleblower stepped forward anonymously and confirmed what I suspected. Jason's company had been using Zach's illness to position themselves as a research leader and had kept my identity in reserve in case they needed a dramatic reveal. They never expected I'd find out first. But none of that mattered when I sat next to Zach in the hospital and he whispered, "Are you the boat guy?" I blinked. "Yeah, I am. I want to build one." "Yeah?" I smiled. "What kind?" He shrugged. "One with 3 boats all tied together. Like a team." A lump rose in my throat. "I think we can do that," I said. And I meant it. The treatment worked. Zach responded faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, his blood markers improved. The doctors used words like remarkable and unexpectedly responsive. I visited daily. We played with Legos, sketched boats on hospital napkins, talked about places he wanted to sail. He started calling me Mark, then one day, out of nowhere, Dad. But even as Zach healed, I stayed alert. The investigator I'd hired kept digging. What she found confirmed everything. Jason's company had exaggerated parts of the donor search in internal reports, suggested I'd abandoned the child, painted a biological mystery angle for future PR releases. They were using Zach. The betrayal wasn't over, it had just evolved. They thought my guilt would make me quiet. So I flipped the game. Through my attorney, we sent carefully worded letters, not to Jason, but to his board, his investors, the press. Nothing loud. Just pressure. Questions. Quiet flames placed beneath the surface. Within a month, funding began to vanish. Licenses were frozen. A leaked email, one where Jason referred to Zach as our poster kid, went viral. Sponsors dropped him overnight. Lindsay's social pages disappeared. Jason's company was dismantled, piece by piece. And I never raised my voice. A year later, Zach was strong. No IVs, no hospitals, just early mornings on the Oregon coast. We'd relocated to a small house near a boatyard where I took custom commissions. Zach loved sanding hulls, naming each project. We built one together, a small trimaran. 3 connected hulls. "That's us," he said, pointing at the model. "You, me, and the middle one's just the bridge." I nodded. "Exactly." Lindsay faded from our lives. The court granted me partial custody, then after Jason fled overseas mid-investigation, full custody. She sent a few letters, most unread. Zach never asked for her. I didn't offer. One afternoon, we launched our trimaran into the water. Zach climbed on, grinning ear to ear. As we sailed into the mist, I felt something I hadn't in years: stillness. Not revenge. Not grief. Just peace. Sometimes, the best justice doesn't come from tearing someone down, but from building something so real, so lasting, that the past can't touch it anymore. We didn't erase what happened. We just sailed past it.